Elliot, you have a lighthouse behind you, which makes me so happy because I've spent my life loving lighthouses, and I finally got to do a movie where I could shoot in the lighthouse. So lighthouses are my favorite thing in the world.
Well, I usually try to like tailor my background to the interview that I'm doing. So
Well, thank you very much. This is already my new favorite interview. I am just sucked into your world automatically.
nailed it. Awesome. So it's a pleasure to be interviewing you today. Just want to
Being
start off
here.
with that.
Thank
So
you.
the first question I have is kind of a two-part question. What interested you about One True Loves to want to direct it, and what was your favorite scene to shoot?
I had, I'll try to make it a very quick story. My grandmother, when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother never dated after that. She believed my grandfather was her one true love. She died late in her 90s. And so that meant about 40 years of her life, she never went on a single date. My dad died when I was 16 and my mom was in her late 40s. And she, like her mom, just believed my dad was her one true love, never went on a date. And then when she turned 70, she called my brothers and myself and said, "Hey, I went on a date." And we were shocked all of a sudden, like 20, like, "What do you mean? What? You went on a date?" Like, and she met a gentleman, Richard, who had also recently lost his wife, and they fell in love. And we were all dealing with that. And then he asked her to marry him, asked my older brother for permission. And then while we were all questioning, like, does that mean, what does that mean about dad and all of that? And I hope she won't forget dad. And he went and took my mom to my father's graveside, where he asked my father for permission to marry my mom, and told my dad
Nice.
he would take care of her, and he did. And that made me really look at life, and knowing that it is possible to have multiple loves in our lives that don't step on the memory of a previous love. And I thought, boy, if there was ever a way I could do that in film. And then Betsy Sellinger, my producing partner, gave me this book, and she loved it, and I read it, and I was like, that's it. Taylor Jenkins Reid books literally solved the problem I had been looking for all these years. So it became very personal. Truly one of my favorite scenes filming was the lighthouse, because I'd always dreamed my whole life. I always wanted to live in a lighthouse. I'm literally obsessed with that photo behind you, because I'm like, that is also what I dreamed of living in. You have this great house and then the lighthouse, and there's something so romantic about the ocean and the lighthouse. And we began researching lighthouses in America, where we could actually shoot and film not just the outside, but up on top. And it wasn't until we got to North Carolina that we were able to find that lighthouse. And that was one of a challenging day. Is very hard to take equipment up to the top of a lighthouse.
Yeah, I can imagine that was challenging.
You can only have so many people up there and so much weight. And it was a really important, heavy scene between Philippa and Luke. So for Emma and Jesse up there. And but I literally kept looking out over the water and just feeling like, how is this my life? I finally got my lighthouse.
I almost picked that lighthouse to be the background too. I thought it was the right one, but it being in North Carolina threw me off when I was looking. I was like, oh, this one's in Maine. That one worked.
By the way, I've seen all of these lighthouses because we legit were kind of figuring where to go. And the few that do allow, and again, it's just not many, it also was a question of what, if you could get up there, how do you get the equipment up there? Some of them were like, you can get up there, but we don't have working stairs anymore. You'd have to drop a helicopter down there. And you're like, okay. It all started getting a little bit all about safety as well.
So how did that setup end up looking when you were shooting that scene? Where was the where was the camera set up? Was it just like on the platform?
We literally had handheld and like built a slider from just using the rail of
Oh,
the,
cool.
and so we had our DP and a couple of crew, our sound, our first AD, myself with a handheld, and Philippa and Luke. The rest of everybody was down on the ground, and it was very hard for them to see much. So the signal was spotty at times, but they could. But if anybody, we had to have this one for all approach to using the bathroom, because if you needed to use the bathroom, it was going to take 20 minutes to get down the stairs and then to the bathroom outside. So we would take the approach, which was if somebody really had to go to the bathroom, we're all going to the bathroom and leaving, and we're all coming back. So it was a lot of well-timed moments.
That's very, very cool. So as I can see behind you, and as I discovered in preparation, you have a big list of comedies.
I do have a business of comedies. I like
on your resume, and I also found that you did some work with musicals as well, being involved with Heathers.
Yeah.
So, do you have a particular genre that you're drawn to more than others? Like, do you have a major preference for comedy?
You know, I certainly love comedies. I'm a dad. I have 2 kids, so I love family comedies. A lot of, as I was telling you about the loss of my father when I was young, a lot of times I'm connected to materials in which there's a little bit of a parental reconnection needed. Sometimes I'm able to blend that in all of them. I'm usually just responsive to when I read something, do I want to see it as a fan? And for me, that's my number one response to how I pick and choose my next project is I read it and go, yeah, that is something I'd want to go see in the theater, whether I directed it or not.
Okay. And now, do you have like an all-time like dream project that you would love to do one day?
I always say whatever the dream project is, I haven't seen it yet because I'm always in love with the current project I'm working on. So I always feel like, well, this is my dream project. I'm talking to you about shooting One True Loves at this beautiful lighthouse and with this amazing cast. So I always feel I'm living the dream with every project.
Very nice. Is there a particular genre that you haven't directed in that you'd like to one day?
You know, I grew up in West Texas. If I ever got to do a Western, that would make me super happy. Those are the type of films as a kid that I just gravitated towards. So maybe someday I'll get to have horses and saddles and dust.
That would be cool. So the next question I have is about the casting process. What was that like for casting the 3 lead characters?
Well, we got Sarah Finn, who is a brilliant casting director who does all the Marvel films and all the Marvel TV shows. And
they always are cast so well, like across the board.
100%. She and I worked on She's the Man together. And so we'd always been looking to find a new project since then. And she came aboard, and during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, where it was like this, Zoom meetings, I met with dozens upon dozens upon dozens of brilliant, amazing actresses whose work I adored. And every time I'd meet with them, I'd be like, is that Emma? Maybe that could be Emma. Is that Emma? Finally, one day, Sarah called and said, hey, do you know Philippa Sue's work? And I had seen her in Hamilton. I saw her on Broadway Anomaly. I loved her work. And she said she read the script and would be interested in talking. I was like, cool. So we end up having a conversation, fell in love with her, talked about the script and the character. And I emailed everyone afterwards. And I said, for the first time, I can honestly say I just met Emma. And that's when we knew she was it. And then from that moment on, once we knew Emma, it was about who Sam and who Jesse would be. And the next person I ended up falling in love with was Simu. And
I mean,
knew,
how can you not?
say it again. Oh,
How can you not?
but what was interesting was Shang-Chi had not come out yet. There was no trailer for it, but I was a massive fan of Kim's Convenience. And I thought he was so charming and funny in that show. So, and I think he thought it was bullshit. I think he didn't think I knew that show. And when I started going on and started talking about, oh, and remember that scene when you did this? Oh, remember that one episode? So then he realized I was indeed a fan. Shang-Chi came out the weekend before we started shooting. So then all of a sudden
okay.
we were like, wow, we have a superhero on board. And I knew Luke Bracey's work from Point Break and from Holiday and a lot of other films he had done. He was filming Elvis at the time, and he and I talked, and I just thought he was so charismatic. And I wanted to find making sure that Sam and Jesse felt like they weren't the same person. So it wasn't that Emma had a type. It was that Emma had love for Jesse, and that made sense. And Emma had love for Sam, and that made sense.
So were they like the go-to people right away, or were there any like chemistry readings with any?
No, I mean, in some weird ways, when you're casting during COVID over Zoom, you are less likely at the time, much harder to do a chemistry read. Even if you put people together on Zoom, there's still a slight awkwardness. But with Philippa, I had promised her she would be involved in that process. And so with every guy that I met that I was excited about, I would talk to her about. And she became equally excited about Simu and equally excited about Luke.
Very nice, very nice. So the last question I have really for you is just kind of like a fun question I like to end my interviews with. What are some of your favorite movies and TV shows that you've been watching for like the last year or so?
Current crop?
Yeah, like some like your favorites.
Well, I love Wednesday. I love Yellow Jackets. Have me all absorbed. I loved Yellowstone. I love 1923. I loved 1883. I guess anything that ends with a 3 has me completely absorbed. I really loved Andor. I really found myself such a Star Wars fan and the universe, but I love that way that storytelling unfolded. And recently, Taylor Jenkins Reid's Daisy and the Six, which I felt like is a sister show for us because of Taylor. I really enjoyed that.
Very nice. So that's pretty much all that I have. It was a pleasure getting to interview you. I really enjoyed the movie a lot. All three of the leads were fantastic. I love Philippa, Simu, Luke. They were all wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much for having us on. It's making an independent movie is giving birth to a child that all you want to do is tell everyone, please hug them. Please give them a hug. So I really appreciate
they're adorable. Look at them.
Yeah, look at them. Look, they're so cute. I appreciate you having us on, and I really appreciate your background. Excellent use of creativity.
Nailed it. Love it.
Nailed it.